While Pooh Shiesty was sitting in federal prison, his music was generating millions. According to claims made publicly by his mother and figures close to the situation, the number being thrown around was over $25 million. And the person those claims were aimed at wasn't a stranger, wasn't a faceless label executive. It was Gucci Mane, the man who signed him, gave him the platform, and helped turn a Memphis rapper with raw energy into one of the most talked about artists in hip-hop. That's what makes this situation harder to process than a standard industry dispute. This wasn't about a contract clause or a royalty percentage. This was about trust built over years, money generated during a period when the artist had no ability to monitor or challenge anything, and a belief, whether accurate or not, that the system had been working against him while he was gone. And when he came home, instead of resolving it through lawyers and negotiations, things went in a direction that turned a financial dispute into a federal case. Pooh Shiesty's path to Gucci Mane started in Memphis around 2019. He had no major backing, no cosign, just a sound that felt genuinely different. Cold delivery, direct energy, street authenticity that didn't feel manufactured. Word spread locally first, then wider. When it reached Gucci, who had already built a reputation for identifying artists before they broke, the offer came quickly. Signing to 1017 Records felt like the moment everything changed. The relationship looked like genuine mentorship from the outside, an experienced figure guiding someone new through the parts of the industry that take years to understand on your own. Then, Back in Blood with Lil Durk dropped, and his career stopped being a rising story and became an arrived one. Streams surged, the project charted, and the industry locked in. He had converted momentum into something real. In 2021, a federal case involving a firearm situation in Florida ended that run abruptly. By 2022, he had pleaded guilty and received a sentence of more than 5 years. Tours stopped, releases slowed, the spotlight moved, but his catalog didn't stop working. That's the part of the music industry most people outside of it don't fully account for. When an artist is incarcerated, the music doesn't pause. Streams keep coming in. Playlists keep pushing records. Catalog value keeps existing. The brand that was built through years of work continues generating revenue whether the artist is present or not. The problem is that the artist isn't present to check anything. They can't review statements. They can't question numbers. They can't renegotiate terms based on performance. They're locked into whatever agreement was signed before everything changed, and the only information they have access to is what the label chooses to share. That gap between what's being generated and what the artist actually understands about it is where resentment grows. Not always because something illegal is happening. Sometimes because the reality of what was agreed to doesn't match the expectations the artist carried into the deal. But when the numbers being discussed publicly reach the level of $25 million and the artist comes home believing they didn't see a fair share of that, the conversation stops being hypothetical. His mother's public statements made clear that the feeling wasn't just frustration, it was that something specific had gone wrong. Those claims have never been adjudicated, and the full financial picture isn't publicly confirmed. But the perception took hold, and perception in hip-hop carries its own weight separate from what legal documents say. When he was released in October 2025, the opportunity was still there. His name still had recognition. Early returns after his release showed fans hadn't moved on completely. And there was interest from Yo Gotti, whose label was expanding aggressively and represented exactly the kind of fresh start that someone in his position would want. But he couldn't move freely. Contractually, he was still tied to 1017 Records. Whatever the disagreements about what happened during his incarceration, the legal relationship hadn't been dissolved. You can't simply sign to a new label while an active contract with another one is in place, no matter how badly both sides might want to move on. That's the wall he was facing, and the tension around it. The unresolved financial claims, the desire to sign with Gotti, the existing contractual obligation to Gucci, was the environment in which someone decided the solution was a meeting in Dallas. On January 10, 2026, a small group connected to Gucci Mane flew to Texas. They were told the meeting was about working through contract terms. They had no reason to expect anything unusual. It was framed as a normal business sit-down, the kind that happens constantly in the industry when two sides need to reach an agreement face-to-face. What they walked into was not that. According to federal allegations, he arrived at the recording studio off Dallas Parkway with a group that included his father and Big 30. The size of the group and the way they moved made clear this wasn't a negotiation. The people who came for a conversation were separated immediately. One group taken into the recording room, another held in the control room. That kind of separation only happens when everyone involved already knows their role. In the recording room, Pooh Shiesty allegedly produced an AK-style firearm. Contract termination documents were already prepared and waiting. Not written in the moment, but brought specifically for this purpose. Gucci was told to sign them. He initially resisted. The pressure didn't ease. With a weapon present and multiple people in the room, the papers were eventually signed. His father reviewed the documents, flagged a missing date, and the paper was pushed back for that edition under the same conditions. Big 30 allegedly recorded a video of Gucci verbally confirming the contract release. That recording wasn't incidental. It was meant to create documentation of an agreement that could be used afterward. In the control room, the situation was physically violent. One victim was choked to the point of near unconsciousness. Movement was blocked and controlled. Items were taken: jewelry, cash, personal belongings. Several people inside the studio later said they didn't know if they would make it out. The entire situation lasted more than an hour. When it was over, the group left. But the evidence they left behind was already building a case before they got back to wherever they were going. The detail that made the case structurally difficult to argue against was the ankle monitor. He had been released under supervised release conditions, which meant his movements were being tracked in real time via GPS. When investigators looked at what happened in Dallas, they didn't need to reconstruct his presence from witness accounts or security footage alone. The location data placed him at the exact address at the exact time the incident occurred. There was no ambiguity in the timeline. From there, the evidence expanded outward. Surveillance footage from the studio and surrounding businesses captured arrivals, vehicles, and exits that matched the timeline. Phone records showed travel between states in the days leading up to January 10th. Social media posts appearing shortly after the incident showed items that resembled what had been taken, public posts with timestamps and account information attached. Physical evidence collected from the scene added further corroboration. Each layer came from a different source. Together, they built a chain that prosecutors could present without depending heavily on any single witness. Pooh Shiesty and multiple co-defendants, including his father Lantrell Williams Sr., are now facing serious federal charges. Kidnapping and armed robbery under federal law carry potential sentences that can reach decades. His status as someone already under supervised release at the time of the alleged offense adds additional weight. Courts treat violations during that period as evidence of ongoing risk, and sentencing reflects that. No verdict has been reached. Everyone involved is legally presumed innocent until a court says otherwise. But the full arc of what happened between 2019 and January 2026 is difficult to look at without landing on the same uncomfortable observation. He had the talent. He had the audience. He had a real second chance after coming home, with genuine interest from a major label and a fan base that hadn't completely moved on. And he had the clearest possible example of what rebuilding after federal time looks like, in the form of the same person now listed as a victim in the case. Whether the financial grievances were legitimate, whether the label handled his catalog appropriately during his incarceration, whether he was owed something that he never received, none of those questions get answered the way he needed them answered by what happened in that studio. What happened instead was that a contract dispute became a kidnapping allegation, a mentor became a victim, and a second chance became a potential life sentence. The question the industry is sitting with isn't really about me specifically. It's about what the gap between what artists are told and what they actually understand about their own deals does to people over time. And what happens when that gap meets desperation, frustration, and the belief that there's no other way to close it. That's a conversation the industry has been avoiding for a long time. This case forced it into the open. Do you think the financial dispute could have been resolved differently, or was this situation always heading toward a breaking point? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Subscribe for more breakdowns on the cases and decisions shaping hip-hop right now.